Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a particular pleasure to open the second day of the 4th European Gender Summit on this beautiful morning in Brussels, very close to the powerhouse of Europe. Welcome to you all. I hope that today's discussion will be as intensive as I've been yesterday and a bit better than the German football team was playing yesterday evening. Let me focus on innovation. What is innovation? Innovation is about fresh ideas turning into value for the economy, for the society. Throughout its history, for most of it, the time of its history, innovation was not a positive term. It was actually, in the Greek sense of its original word, meaning challenge and change to the established order. And change to the established order is often something, it's close to heresy. It's not good. So for most of its time, innovation stood for something negative, something to avoid. And even today's innovators know that dilemma. Clayton Christensen has written a brilliant book about the innovator's dilemma. If you introduce an innovation, you are challenging, even within your company, the established order, and you have to find ways of managing this and having successful teams working on something which might even change the business model of your own company. But today, for our economies here in Europe, innovation is the key driver for growth. OECD reckons that it stands for something like 60% of productivity growth, so it's huge. What are we doing about it? So we have started in 2010 the Innovation Union. This is the most ambitious strategy of Europe for innovation so far. And it covers the knowledge base, as every innovation strategy should. But it also addresses the internal market, the single market for innovation, with new rules on public procurement to include innovation, with finally a breakthrough on the European patent, where we so far have only 28 different systems, which is very costly. Also with the modernization of the standardization model, standardization process for Europe, and a venture capital passport for venture capital firms in Europe so that they can invest cross-border without specific authorizations each time. So we have increased and improved the framework conditions. We have also pooled resources in innovation partnerships and brought together demand and supply side measures on innovation. So looking back now after 4 years, we can say that we have made a big step forward on innovation. Europe is still very strong, catching up, by the way, in its innovation performance with the United States. We have halved the difference in innovation performance with the United States. South Korea is still higher in its performance than Europe and growing faster. And other countries are also catching up, but from a lower level of performance. But globally, Europe is strong. There's no room for complacency. We have to do more. And one or two points come out very clearly for further action. There is a risk of an innovation divide in Europe. The difference between the best performing country and the lowest performing country is a factor 4, which is also a question of equality. So what about gender in all this? I think you have heard yesterday of our new funding program, Horizon 2020, which, and I will say this only once so that you don't think I make too much publicity, but I'm working for DG Research and Innovation. We have coordinated this program. We are very proud of what we have achieved. We have achieved, in difficult budgetary times, a substantial increase in budget. 30%. That's a clear signal. We have brought it much closer to innovation. It's a single program with single rules of participation covering the entire value creation chain. So it's an innovation program, which means closer to market actions, more demonstration, but also procurement actions in it, innovation prizes, inducement prizes, new instruments we have included in that program. What we have also done is we celebrated women innovators. We created an award for the women innovator. And the criteria were quite challenging. You need to be a woman. Okay. You need to have founded a company. You need to have at least 10 employees or turnover of over 100,000 euros. And you need to have benefited from EU research funding. When we were working out these criteria with Commissioner Geoghegan-Quinn, we were, as a Research Innovation Commissioner, we were not sure whether there would be enough women which would comply with these criteria in Europe, because European funding is highly competitive. Funding a company is highly competitive. We found more in the first round, we are now in the second round, more than 100 high-quality applications from women which were, who were complying with these and had founded fantastic companies, fantastic success stories, playing a strong role model. And at the last award in March this year, the winner was asked by the moderator, but how do you combine your professional life with your family life? And she was replying, I have a husband. I'm not sure whether this is now a biased question or a biased answer, but I leave that to you. But the answer was good, huh? Wasn't it? So women are very active as entrepreneurs, and we can, I think this is also a common feature of innovation, we can celebrate it in society so that there is more encouragement to others to follow their paths. The other aspect, and I think you've discussed it yesterday, is the integration of gender into our research and funding program. So by this I mean the taking into account the needs and interests of both women and men in the programming, in the projects. And often this gender dimension, I think this is a very clear fact, is not sufficiently taken into account. And on this I learned a lot, actually, through the work carried out by this expert group, Innovation Through Gender, which we funded, but the work was done by brilliant persons, and there are, some of them are here, so I would like to thank particular these experts, 60 experts altogether across Europe, United States, Canada, under the leadership of Londa Schiebinger, Ineke Klinge, Ines Sanchez de Madariaga, and Martina Schraudner. So this was really great work, and I think many here are familiar with their case studies presented in that report. They show in a very concrete way how gender analysis is conducted and how it can impact research innovation. Mostly showing the painful gaps, but also sometimes that there is an overemphasis on gender. I noted this example on the knee prosthesis. So, for instance, we often think that in health gender analysis is always taken into consideration. It's not true. We know from research, from a study, that almost half of the articles in neuroscience, physiology, and interdisciplinary biology journals, the sex of the animal subject is omitted. when the sex of the animal is reported, we clearly see an underrepresentation of female subjects. So what are the consequences? The outcome of such research is flawed and cannot be applied to both females and males without serious risks. There are many examples beyond the health sector. I think we also discussed this yesterday. Machine translation is one. Cars, I know from Ms. Schraudner, actually this is also very important for innovation. The off-road cars, which became very modern 10 or 15 years ago, these big, high cars. The big surprise for car companies that they were mostly attractive to women, not because of anyway, no one uses them for driving off-road, but because you were sitting higher and had a better overview. So we still, today, do not take into account enough the gender dimension, which is hampering innovation. Let me give you another example, video games. When video games were created in the 1970s, they were designed by men. The ICT sector was male-dominated, and it was not surprising that these video games attracted mainly boys and not girls. Then in the 90s, some video game companies introduced the so-called pink games, targeting girls. That, however, didn't have a lot of success. Why? Well, instead of developing a real gender analysis, and this is really typical, they based their assumptions purely on gender stereotypes. Further studies on game preference by gender showed a third approach, which looked more promising, a category of games which would suit boys and girls, like the Guitar Hero. We know from, you know this company Rovio, the Finnish company now famous for the Angry Bird games. They're very active in educational games. And they found actually that in Finland, young boys speak better English than girls. Why? Because they spend more time on games. So it has also, whether this is good from a parental point of view is another question. But speaking good English, maybe I should have played better more as a child. So, gender, let me end on a positive tone. I mean, we are still fundamentally underestimating the gender dimension which hampers innovation, but gender differences are not carved in stone. We can change it. In each case, it's simply important that we analyze the situation, assess how and to what extent gender issues are intervening, and what we can do to address these. And then researchers and innovators, whether they work under a European research grant or not, can come with solid solutions for the overall society. So let me conclude simply by saying we cannot complete our ambitious target of creating an innovation union without gender equality, and I'm very grateful for all your thoughts, input into this process. Thank you very much.